Hello, welcome to this MBL webinar on shed conversions and garden offices, a conveyancer's guide. My name is Lorraine Richardson and I am a solicitor and legal trainer. As you may know, I've been doing both for a very long time now. If you ever want to find me, you can either contact me via MBL or via my website, www.adaptlaw.co.uk. So the desire to work at home really seems not to have sort of diminished since the dark days of COVID, and many homeowners want to find extra space to use as an office, and of course lots of people can't afford to extend their property, haven't got enough room in the house to use a spare bedroom as an office, so they're turning to other solutions like shed conversions and garden offices. But problems can arise, and actually often, is often the case, when a property is being sold and you, the conveyancer, get involved. So what I'm just wanting to do in this webinar is just to give you some of the sort of key points to consider, to think about when acting for a buyer who's purchasing a property with a home office. Now, it's fair to say, of course, that not all of these issues are going to arise every time. But I do think it's quite important that you sort of turn your mind to them so that, well, frankly, you don't miss anything, to be quite honest, because it sort of seems fairly innocuous. If somebody's just sort of stuck something down the garden, you might not think too much about it. But and as ever, of course, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but every situation will sort of be different. It will all depend on its own facts and the sort of type of use, the intensification of use, the size of a structure, whether you're in a conservation area or whatever. So there's quite a lot of threads to think about, and I'm just going to pull some of those threads together for you. So I'm going to talk to you about planning requirements, which can be a bit nebulous. We need to think about the title, we need to think about the property information form, we need to think about electrics and other certificates and the lender, and as ever, of course, throughout I will sort of point out some of the pitfalls for you as the conveyancer that you might come across as you progress through this transaction. So a rather sort of, perhaps seemingly obvious, but I think important point is to think about right at the beginning is, what does your client want? Because if using the garden office is essential to your client, they're going to be taking a risk if you've identified a problem and they decide to proceed. And of course, conversely, there's going to be a problem if, you haven't identified an issue and they go ahead and that issue subsequently raises its head. So I do think it's just really important where there's a garden office scenario that you do just sort of stop and get off and stop and think about these issues and just think whether any of them might be applicable to this particular client's circumstances. So, of course, it goes without saying, but I shall say it anyway because I'm nothing if not obvious. Make sure your advice on this particular point is clear, and think about, in most cases, of course, you're going to be able to proceed if there's a lender, but you've got to have the lender's requirements sort of in the back of your mind, really.